If Donald Trump has made one thing clear this year, it's that he knows literally nothing, absolutely nothing about what is happening in the Jeffrey Epstein case, the thing his base cares about more than anything, and the story in which his former best friend girls from his hotel. He knows nothing and he doesn't care.
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
Did you personally approve the prison transfer for Ghislaine Maxwell that your Justice Department...
I didn't know about it at all, no. I read about it just like you did.
Is Vice President Vance hosting a gathering this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
I don't know of it.
It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring.
Sordid but boring, yes. Yes, the Jeffrey Epstein story, very boring. But look, people around him apparently find it less boring than he does because they're leaking a lot of shit about it, including the fact that Donald Trump maybe cares more than he's letting on. And that is what we are talking about today. My name is Carly Riley. This is the Carly P. Riley Show. I look at what powerful people are saying and I ask, what the fuck? Like what and why and how? And like, truly, I cannot wrap my head around the world we're living in. In any case, if you would like to join me twice a week while I dissect what is going on behind the scenes, power players, what they're saying, what they're doing, on Mondays and Thursdays, please subscribe to the channel, comment below, share this video if you get some value out of it. And with that, there is a traitor in the White House.
Trump needs to think out loud, and calling this list of people who he appears to trust, even though they might call me afterwards, is a way really to follow exactly what is on Trump's mind.
Okay, so if you don't know, that is Michael Wolff. That is Donald Trump's biographer, a man that Donald Trump has disavowed and does not like because Michael Wolff wrote several books about Donald Trump and his first term as president, and none of them were particularly favorable. But Michael Wolff is credibly known to have very close contacts within Trump's orbit. And this is from a video Michael Wolff released just this week about a conversation he had with supposedly, apparently, a close confidant of Donald Trump's. And he says this is a good way to gauge what is really on Donald Trump's mind. Listen to this conversation.
Within the last several days, he said to this person, "People say I had Epstein killed. I didn't have Epstein killed," Trump said. And then this person said, "Well, do you think that he was killed?" And Trump replied, "A lot of people wanted him dead."
Oh my God! I worked in politics for a number of years. And we used to joke, there was an expression, you'd say, people think it's House of Cards and it's really Veep, the two TV shows. The joke being everyone thinks it's some deep state conspiracy and murder and intrigue, and really it's a bunch of bumbling buffoons who don't know what they're doing, and its incompetency is leading to most of what we think is like a deep state thing. It might actually be House of Cards. Like, that's bananas. And look, it's worth saying, I think Michael Wolff is a bit of a dramatist. I think Michael Wolff at this point knows where his bread is buttered, and it is by throwing tasty little morsels to a ravenous public with details about Trump and Epstein and these power players and this whole world. Like, that is the cottage industry Michael Wolff has built for himself at this point. With this being said, I don't think he is an outright liar. So that conversation that he just described as having happened very recently, he posted that video a couple days ago. I believe that happened, which is so nuts. Forget that the president of the United States apparently feels that he needs to clarify to close confidants that he didn't have the most notorious pedophile of our time murdered. The thing that jumped out to me, I was like, oh my God, Donald Trump doesn't think Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. like for all his talk of like, who really cares about the story? It's so boring. He's like, no, this man was murdered. And do you know who I thought of first when I saw this? Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Kash Patel, our director of the FBI and deputy director of the FBI, who were trod out on Fox News looking like a couple of hostage victims, swearing up and down, no, it was a suicide.
As a prosecutor who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to get, I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
He killed himself. Dan Bongino looks positively medicated. It looks like he needed to be sedated to go out and say that and give that interview. And honestly, I don't blame him. Can you imagine if you're Dan Bongino, you have a top 40 podcast, life is going great, you get to go say whatever you want, you're not beholden to the truth, you make millions of dollars, like life is good. You give all of that up, you leave it all behind to go work for some dude, right? Who then makes you go out on Fox News and lie, just lie about what's in the file, cover shit up, completely not deliver on the transparency that you had been promising for years on your podcast to your audience. And then that same motherfucker, your boss, calls up some apparently unreliable confidant and is like, yeah, I really don't think he killed himself. I think it's smart. I would be the leaker. If I was Bongino, that would push me to be, I would become a leaker at that point. I'd go, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. Loyalty gone. No, like it gets worse because whoever leaked this information, I mean, they either are genuinely concerned about Donald Trump and his state of mind or what he may or may not have done. I mean, genuinely to leak this to Michael Wolff, or they really hate Trump. To leak this to Michael Wolff. This is a man who is not friendly to Trump. His whole business now is spilling Donald Trump's business and secrets, mostly in unfavorable ways, on YouTube. And in fact, this conversation that Michael Wolff just recounted, he told this story on the Midas Touch YouTube channel as part of a broader narrative he was spinning about why Donald Trump may have in fact whacked Jeffrey Epstein. Listen to him talk about this conversation he had with Epstein back in, I believe, 2019, where he was encouraging Epstein to release some very incriminating Polaroid photos of Donald Trump that Epstein supposedly had in his possession.
I said, maybe this will even help you. You can be on the side of right here. And I remember Epstein said, again, chilling at the time, he said, I may be a pervert, but I'm not crazy. And then he said, Trump is a man without any scruples. Chill went up my back then.
Okay, look, I don't know. This is to me where I find Michael Wolff to be, have a flair for the dramatic, have a touch of the dramatics. I believe that some conversation like this happened, fully. In fact, the statement, Trump is a man without any scruples, is almost so obvious so as to be practically benign. So the idea that like a chill ran up your back, that's where I think we're getting a little hyperbolic on the part of Michael Wolff. With that being said, if you accept these general premises and the way that Michael Wolff is stringing them together, which I somewhat do, like, did the president of the United States kill the most notorious pedophile of our generation? And like now karma's coming back to bite him? I mean, that is something that over 1 million people who watch this video are legitimately contemplating in the comments. Like, that's so bananas. But the bigger point to me here is whoever leaked this, whoever told Michael Wolff this story, again, was telling it to somebody who is notoriously unfriendly, who used that information to spin it in the worst possible light possible, who contextualized it with the most damning possible information for Donald Trump. And of course, this completely belies Trump's own act, his own facade of, oh, I really just don't even care about the story. I'm not thinking about this story at all. Oh, in fact, he's thinking about it so much, he's calling up his confidants to insist he didn't have Epstein killed. And here's the thing. This wasn't even the only leak this week. This week there were, it was a leakful week. It was a leaky week. Yesterday, it was leaked that JD Vance was having some sort of summit at his house with a bunch of leaders on the Epstein case. Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff, Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General who interviewed Maxwell. They were all apparently going to convene at JD Vance's house to, I don't know, strategize about the ongoing cover-up, I assume. Now, this got so much press attention that JD Vance was ultimately forced to deny that this was happening.
I saw it reported today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
Well, there you go. It's utterly fake news to suggest that the people involved in the Epstein cover-up at the White House would be meeting to talk about the Epstein cover-up. And we know it's fake news because JD Vance told us it's fake news, and this administration never lies about what's fake news.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. That's just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit.
Something that's total bullshit. Of course. Except Except that we already know JD Vance does not think this is total bullshit.
What I told Vance, I said, if you don't disclose everything, you're done. Nobody will support you guys. You are fully and completely part of this cover-up if everything doesn't come out. I think it paralyzes their presidency completely.
And what did Vance say?
He agrees with me. He agrees with me.
Interesting. Now, of course, there is one last wrinkle here, which is that while JD Vance may be concerned about the Epstein case and the way in which it is derailing Trump's presidency, there's also a world in which maybe it's good for JD Vance personally. Under that video of Tim Dillon talking about his dinner with JD Vance, the comments were full of people who found it interesting, arguably even strategic, that JD Vance seemed to slip this piece of information, this point of agreement in, while having dinner with Tim Dillon, a podcaster who goes out and talks about everything he talks about, I guess. JD Vance is playing his presidential cards. What a snake. Vance adds fire so he becomes president. JD Vance's presidential campaign has officially begun, or shall we say the Vance coup. And look, we have no idea what's really going on behind the scenes, but it has been a very leaky week for the Trump administration, which means people around Trump are seeing weakness. Whether it's somebody calling Michael Wolff to say the president is privately musing about the fact that people think he killed Epstein, to somebody leaking that JD Vance is hosting an Epstein cover-up summit at his house. You also had a major story out by the New York Times this week offering a never-before-seen look inside Jeffrey Epstein's home, pictures inside his home, including the fact that he apparently had a first edition copy of Lolita prominently displayed in his office. Lolita, the book about a pedophile, the book written from the point of view of a pedophile. I mean, not exactly subtle stuff. And none of this is good for Trump. All of this keeps this story in the news cycle. And the New York Times story really reflected how, frankly, obvious Epstein was willing to be about his proclivities. So while Trump may have no interest in the Epstein story, other than that nagging spot that won't come out.
Out. Damned spot out.
A little Shakespearean joke for you, reference to Macbeth, the Shakespearean tragedy about power, greed, and unbridled ambition, and the fact that two people commit murder, complicit in murder, in order to seize power, and then she's haunted by it for the rest of her life and can't get the spot of blood out, even though it's in her mind and she goes crazy. And anyway, my point is that Donald Trump's feigned disinterest in this case is arguably more transparent than if he had acted like he just cared about it from the beginning. And it seems it's losing him some of his sycophants. We have Trump lying through his teeth for months now to tell us that the Epstein story doesn't matter and he doesn't care, while he privately calls friends to tell them he didn't have Epstein murdered, and then those same friends go and report it to the press. While JD Vance, who perhaps has the most to gain from something like this taking down Trump, so long as he can separate himself from it, publicly backs the president and said, yep, see, nothing to see here, nothing going on, we don't care about this, while he privately tells a comedian who's very talkative and has a podcast that, yeah, he thinks this is really important and he really cares and stands with the base. So look, I don't know where all this all lands, but I can tell you it is most definitely not boring. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would love if you would consider sharing it with somebody else who you think might enjoy it, or subscribing to the channel.